So, welcome back to Saturday Huddle. I am here today with one of the MBG podcast co hosts, Who's. How are you doing today, Who's?
I'm doing great, Emily. Glad to be here.
I am super excited to have you here. As you know, last season on Big Ten Talk, I think I managed to get every single co host on but you because simply the compatibility of Virginia football and Big Ten football really just didn't align or match up.
I didn't notice at all. It didn't hurt
Yeah,
my feelings at all. So
I'm sure. I'm sure I did. I'm glad. I'm glad, honestly, that it didn't hurt your feelings. But I'm super excited to have you on an episode of Saturday Huddle. And I'm super excited to dive into what we're going to be talking about today, which is why fans take college football so personally. So I can only imagine, as one of the co hosts of the MBG podcast, you guys probably consistently see, obviously, overreactions on the message boards, really insane. I'll do this if my team wins, or I'll do this if this team loses type of things, and just probably really extreme statements. So, I mean, why do you think college football feels personal in a way that other sports often don't? Kind of just to kick things off.
yeah, well, you touched on something right at the top there. There's a spectrum, like any sports group or group of fans, where the lunatic fringe are the message board posters. Those are the ones who probably take it the most seriously, where it's literally impacting every minute of their lives. But I do think that, as you said, with college football, there are more people on that end of the spectrum where it really is meaningful to them and it does impact them. I mean, as a Virginia fan, I've had many Saturdays ruined by the Cavaliers. And I think there are a lot of reasons for it. I think part of it is just fewer games. If you're playing your rival once a year and you lose, you've got to wait a whole year and listen to them talk trash for that entire year. And that is meaningful. Whereas in basketball or baseball, baseball is a 3 game series. Basketball, you usually play your rival at least twice a year. And so it's that one game where you're going to have bragging rights where everything is on the table. So I think that's part of it. And a lot of it is the pageantry of it. I think it's college football Saturday. You don't have people scheduling weddings around a random basketball game in February.
Right.
You do with college football, and you don't have the whole day of celebration every Saturday in other sports. You just see that in college football, and a lot of those traditions have been going on for years, and people make a full day of it. It's you go to a basketball game, you go to a baseball game, college football, you go tailgate. You see the people you've tailgated with for years. You might see people you haven't seen in a long time. It's like another family, an extension of your family. So I think there are a lot of reasons for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of everything you touched on goes back to this idea of like identity. So we often see jokes like on social media, like don't make your team your entire identity. However, I think it's very easy and common for college football fans to do so. And we kind of touched on this a little bit in previous episodes, but part of like what you said, there's fewer games. And historically there were fewer games. We're talking about expanded playoffs now, going up to 24, which is atrocious, but we're already at 12. So we have like more games now than we ever did, but I do think it's like imprinted in us that we have fewer games. And there was a point where you lost one game and your season was over. There was basically no point in going on because you weren't going to make it to the playoffs. And so every game really counts. And I don't think we've necessarily evolved past that point to really embrace the expanded playoffs yet because we're still in that mindset of every game still counts and we can't afford to screw up and lose one. And so that pressure and that stress, I think, absolutely contributes to the emotional reactions that we see and people taking it so personally. And especially what you said with rivalries, like we only play, like a football team can only play their football rivalry once. And so that's a really meaningful game. I think that's like something that really stands apart from other sports is like that one rivalry game. Even in professional sports like the NFL, we're seeing at least playing them twice. And like what you said with basketball and baseball, it's like there's more than one game. So yeah, it's like we only play them once, and that can be a whole year of trash talking. So of course people are going to emotionally react to that. Like when Oregon lost to UW in back-to-back years for a total of 3 times after the Pac-12 championship, that was horrendous. That was like a really horrible moment, I would say, as a football fan in my football fan life, because that was like double. That was like 2 years of trash talk back to back. And really, I'm powerless in it because they're right, they won. But it kind of just like elevates the discourse even more.
Well, as someone who went through 18 straight losses to their rival,
You always,
basically.
I kind of knew you might make me feel a little bit better about this, but also kind of like a little rude for bringing up the fact that I'm complaining that my team
No,
lost.
no. Well, listen, it's abnormal to lose 18 times in a row, but I mean that's a generation of not being able to talk trash. And I will say
Yeah,
that the way that I've approached that is I just talk trash anyway,
yeah, why
because
not? Life
if
is
you're not
short.
going to win, you still have to have fun.
Yeah, I honestly think those are some of the best football fans too when they do it correctly. It's like my team sucks, but I'm not going to miss out on the fun. I'm still going to trash talk to my rival and basically anybody that crosses me on social media. It doesn't
That's
matter.
exactly
No
right.
one's safe. No one is safe. I actually think that's a really good and maybe healthy approach because we're not taking it too seriously. Let's kind of embrace
I
what
still
it
take it way too seriously, but I'm gonna enjoy myself one way or the other. So,
is. Of course,
um,
life's too short.
and you touched on something important. I think identity is such an important factor with college football because it's a safe way to identify yourself in the world. It's not like religion or politics or something like that. It's I'm a fan of this school, and that could be something that you get from your family. It could be where you grow up, a geographic thing. It could be you're a bandwagon fan, and that's still part of who you are. And so I think so many people. This is a little serious, but go through life. It's a huge world, like looking for a way to identify themselves in the world. And college football is a great way to do that. And it's also an immediate, this, talking point with people you meet out in the world who you might not know. I'm terrible at small talk, but I can talk to anybody about college football, right? That's,
Yeah,
that's like one of those
absolutely.
topics that, yeah, I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't necessarily want to hear, all about your grandkids. I'm sure they're great, but, it's just not my thing. But if you
Right.
want to talk ball, I'll do that for hours with people I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is like a talking point, and I definitely find myself relying on that when I know I'm going to be needing to talk to people in a social setting that I have never met before or I don't know very well. It's even better if they're already wearing something of their team. So it's like I know that I can rely on that. Like, oh, you're in, this Oklahoma gear. Let's talk about that for a bit. It's like a really easy talking point.
And even
And then
if
you
it's a
don't
rival, right? Like this happened to
absolutely
me. I was at my daughter's field hockey game, and I don't know the parents very well. And there was a guy in a Virginia Tech sweatshirt who it ends up is the dad of one of my daughter's friends who I just hadn't met before. And we're immediately talking junk to each other, right? We met 30 seconds before, and the second thing out of his mouth, because I was wearing a Virginia hat, he's just like, "Oh, nice," and I'm like, "Perfect." That's how I want to meet everyone, right? Like, just
absolutely. It's so easy, and you don't realize how powerful it is until you don't have that to rely on. Like you're talking to someone who's like, I don't follow sports at all. And it's like, oh, you took away my one, my one talking point.
that's when I just try and pull the ripcord and get out because I have nothing to talk about at that point.
Right.
So,
Right. Like you just limited my material significantly
right.
of what we're going to talk about. But you also brought up regional, like regions, which I think is really important when we're thinking about identity in college sports and perhaps why this hits home for so many people. It's like that regional pride. And so obviously with conference realignment, that looks a little different as well. But for a long time, we kind of had like these, I would say like stereotypical ideas of what each conference, valued, how they did skill wise in football, like their history. And that became a major talking point for either trash talk or just common narrative building or common conversation. So, like, teams represent cities and states and regions. So, like, no offense, like when I think of Columbus, Ohio, when I think of Ohio in general, one of the first things that pops in my mind is Ohio State because us outside of Cleveland, and Cincinnati, but basically my mind immediately goes to Columbus. And so I think of Ohio State. And then like some afterthoughts are Cleveland with like, the Cavaliers and then Cincinnati with like the Reds, and then the Cincinnati Bengals. And so it's like those are all afterthoughts. And this could just be because I'm a college football fan. My mind immediately goes to like the closest university and their football program when I
Mhm.
think of a particular region or a particular city. No offense, same with Virginia, man. When I think of Virginia, all I'm thinking about is like the University of Virginia. There's not
That
very
was the
much
right
else
answer, by the way.
and there's not very much else I'm thinking about in
Right.
regards to Virginia. And so I think it's really fascinating. I mean, I know people do the same thing with Oregon. They do the same thing where they're like, oh, Oregon has like they have like that university in that smaller town that's not Portland. And so it's like I think regionally that can absolutely add to the overall narratives, but it definitely becomes kind of like a symbol of how that particular region's represented. So like I know growing up, SEC is like basically what people talked about when it came to college football and how tough football is in the South. And that as well as like how everything's bigger in Texas. So they obviously weren't part of the SEC in the time period that I'm talking about, but kind of just like they take football very seriously in Texas, all the way from like pee wee football all the way up to professional football. Like this is a very serious matter, and so it's like it's interesting how these different regions and what they become known for football wise contribute to this overall identity.
Yeah, and even within regions, right? Because I'm sure you have this with like Oregon State, but like Virginia and Virginia Tech, it's the disparities between those two schools that people focus on. Like, and
Totally.
I'm not saying any of these stereotypes are true, but we're the Zima drinking, guys who wear jackets and ties to games, and they're the rednecks who we make fun of who live out in the hills. There are half truths in all of that, but it's a lot of this is it's how you define yourself as us versus the world, and in a rivalry, it's us versus them. And so those distinctions are, they become the pressure points when you're talking trash. And I'm sure Oregon State and Oregon, have and or Washington, the same thing. There are differences between the schools, and those are the things that are highlighted, especially with the people who aren't great at trash talking. The people who are good at it, dive a little deeper and get to the good stuff. But the surface level stuff, a lot of times, is the distinctions between the areas or between the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also that interesting factor of like alumni identity, which I kind of would love to get your thoughts on because it's like I feel like that plays such a role in how people feel about their program and how people feel about their football team is like if they went to school there, it might be enhanced because we're tapping into like a really pivotal part of people's lives, like that high school to college to full adulthood transition where so much can happen that I feel like a football team's success or perhaps their mediocrity really becomes like a symbol and kind of like a timestamp of like a certain point in their life that contributes to their overall identity as they move forward and as they get into their careers and kind of the further away they get from college, they never truly lose that.
Well, I mean, listen, I will say as a Virginia alum, and I went there for undergrad and for law school, it's a thing. I mean, if you see someone out in the wild, I don't care where you are, wearing Virginia gear, if I wear this hat in Europe and I run into a UVA grad, they'll hit me with a wahoo wah. I mean, it's a universal thing, and you're right. I mean,
National brand,
my,
man, Europe.
yeah, exactly. My fondest memories, a lot of them, are going to football games when I was an undergrad. And, my buddies and I still talk about the game when we were ranked number one in the country and playing Georgia Tech on a Saturday night and, all of the, having all the big networks there and, the Sugar Bowl bid on the line and all this stuff. That game was 35 years ago. And it comes up still, I would say, once a month, probably. And so, yeah, I mean, it's everyone is nostalgic to a certain extent. And I think when you're a fan of a football team, you have so many, especially if you go to games and you are an alum, you have so many memories that are just part of you. And every time you go to a game, part of those memories come back, right? Like it's all about shared stories and shared memories with your friends. Those are the things that make life worth living. And, you have so many of them from going to football games with people you care about. This is way more serious than I've ever been on a podcast, by the way, but but this is
I
meaningful
mean,
stuff.
totally.
Yeah.
It is because I mean, I think there are those like serious elements of being a sports fan in general, and part of that is like is memories. So absolutely, like when when a sports team or like a program becomes part of like a family tradition or a friendship tradition or just something that's like regularly a part of your routine in a football season, I think that can absolutely imprint on a person to a point of like, oh, this is a part of me now. And I think that might be like difficult and perhaps ridiculous to grasp from an outside perspective, like from people who don't follow a sport or any sports. It's like it might be hard to conceptualize or even truly grasp that, because it feels like it could be silly or it seems like it could be ridiculous, because at the end of the day, this is just a sports team and they're going to win or lose or have a good or bad season. But I think there's so many different layers to it. Like there's so many different layers, and I feel like that plays a role into why people take it so personally. Like, oh, I grew up going to every single game with my grandparents in the fall, and now they're not here. So it's like now it like means more to me because it's like a way of closeness and a way of like feeling that when I'm at the game and I'm in that environment, feeling closer to people who are no longer here. So it's interesting, and I definitely think being an alum plays a role in that as well, because again, like that's like emerging adulthood. Like that's like such a big part of life where you're meeting new people and you're vibing with people or not, and it kind of like all falls in the timeline that can be really easy to track based on like how a sports team's doing and how the football team did that year and what big things you got to be a part of, or the solidarity of disappointment if your football team sucked that year.
And
So
when you get older too, you don't remember. Like if you ask me something that happened in 2017, right? Like unless you give me context, I'm not going to have any idea. And or if you ask me when something happened, unless it's around like my kids' development or something like that, I won't remember the year. If you ask me, do you remember this game in college? I will remember the month, the year, what the weather was like. Like it's this collective memory that you share with your friends, and it's always there. And yeah, it becomes part of you. And then with family, that was sweet that you said that about your grandparents. With me, my family is from kind of Western Virginia, which is more Virginia Tech territory, and I was the first person from my family to go to Virginia. So that's a thing in my family. Like I'm the Virginia guy, and most of my family is Virginia Tech fans. And it changed that, and I was a Virginia fan for whatever reason from the time I was like 8 years old. I wanted to go there. But that's the thing. Like I'm the Virginia guy in my family, and it's fun. You know what I mean? Like it's not a bad thing. It's something that when you don't see relatives that often, it gives you again something you can talk about, laugh about, give each other crap for. And so it's meaningful on like so many levels, I think.
totally. It absolutely is meaningful. And I mean, I think when you start paying attention to those stories as to why people love their team so much and like, how it started, how it originated, the memories tied to it, I think it's really fascinating. And you also bring up a really good point, because like what we were talking about a few minutes ago about talking points with strangers, I use the same thing with my family. One, I mean, there's definitely family that I don't see or talk to that often. So when that moment comes up, it's like, oh, well, I know they're, a Pittsburgh fan. I can rely on that, and I can talk about that because I don't feel comfortable talking about much of anything else, because I don't like, despite this person being family, I still don't really know this person, or I'm not super close with this person.
You might be scared what they're going to say if you talk about other topics.
Exactly. It's like, oh, we can't talk about politics at Thanksgiving. Everyone go around and talk about their football team.
Right.
This just seems like a safe topic. So I think it's like it's a saving grace. I absolutely think that those talking points are really important. And I love what you said about kind of like fandom being inherited. So like starting at a young age, that can come with even more stories at that point, because you're not waiting until college to kind of form those core memories. Those core memories start as like a child. So I can understand why people feel it ties into their identity more, because it starts at such a young age.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my kids still give me a hard time about the fact that I was dressing them in Virginia gear. They're like, you didn't even give us a choice. I'm like, well, you were a kid, so like
Right.
you had to wear whatever we bought. And I didn't think I was that bad about it until so I'm on Facebook, and you have the Facebook memories that pop up, and like every picture of my kids is like orange and blue something. I was like, no, I was pretty bad. Like, I was trying very hard to indoctrinate them at a young age.
Yeah, you have to get your feelings clear to them at a young age so that they grow up knowing, like, I'm either going to disappoint my dad or follow this line of being a Virginia fan. That makes
Exactly.
sense to me.
Right. I'm trying to impose this like lifetime of sports fan disappointment on my children for some reason, but
Character building.
yeah, that's
Character building.
exactly. That's why I am the person I am today.
Yeah, it's character building. That's parenting 101, I think, honestly. So another thing that's really interesting with people identifying so closely to their team is how criticism can feel so personal. And we see this obviously on multiple levels. Like we see this with fans going back and forth on social media, especially when they have differing opinions. But it's always really fascinating when the media writes and talks about certain components and elements of a team, and fans have a very averse and strong reaction to that because most fans do the same thing. They state their opinions and they have hills that they will die on over hot takes or questionable ones. But it's really like no one is safe. And either you, even if you've been writing about this program for 18 years, people are still going to take what you say personally from a standpoint of like being the media or being a journalist in the field or simply just being a fan. So, it's interesting how fans internalize team success. So wins feel validating and losses feel embarrassing or personal. And I definitely think social media intensifies this identity. And how do you think, especially from like a Virginia Tech standpoint, not just with your rivalry, but beyond like what Virginia football has done recently, do you feel like social media has or intensified that identity even more for like your football team?
So it's funny what you said about media. So there's an independent journalist in Charlottesville who is just known for writing hit pieces on Virginia football, and it's one of the few things that brings all of us together as Virginia fans. Our dislike of this guy, and giving him crap every time he writes another hit piece. So it's funny how you can have a fan base that is, because you get this. I mean, you have people in your own fan base who are difficult, and you might not all. It's like family. You don't always get along, and there are people you'd rather hang out with than others. But there are certain things that bring you all together, and so that's one of them. When you have a member of the media who you feel like is being unfair, especially to your guys. To me, it's coaches sign up for this. They're paid really well. I mean, players are paid well now too, but they're kids. They're young. Their brains aren't fully formed. They don't need some 50-year-old guy, writing crappy things about them in his little piece of crap newspaper. This is me trying to edit myself, by the way. Uh,
Yeah, I
so
sense that.
so it's interesting how that can bring fans together, but then social media, to me, it can bring them together or divide them. It does both. I think during rivalry week is when you see the most cohesiveness, where you all are coming together against the evil empire on the other side, and so that's always fun. But any other time, it's all bets are off. And I know you see this with your fan base, and I definitely get it with mine, where you end up fighting over just stupid stuff, right? It's almost like fighting with your siblings about stuff that at the end of the day isn't that important, but in the moment, it feels incredibly important, and you're going to
Yeah.
go to bat for it. I try to stay out of those, and people think I'm a sunshine pumper because I am, but that's mostly I just don't have time for like the negativity and again to like be giving kids crap about not playing well and things like that. I think social media is great in that it's an opportunity to meet so many different people, not only from your own fan base but from others. But it also gives a voice to some people who maybe shouldn't have as a lot of a voice as they
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah, I mean that's true. I think it's really easy as sports fans in general to get sucked into like every negative or every shiny headline that like makes you want to click and engage with it. I mean, I know I'm definitely guilty of doing this when like I know the motive is to get people to engage because it's like so utterly insane what some people say. But I think it's really important, or I think it's really easy to kind of get sucked into that and to like continuously engage in that material. So if you're able to like think a little more reasonably and like, participate in objective like material, but then also be optimistic or like a sunshine pumper, like you said. I'm not sure I've
I
ever
mean, it's a
heard that term
combination of
before, but
sunshine pumper and being petty. I think there's a
yeah.
balance in there between those two things. And I'll be
Totally.
honest, the other thing I do on social media that's helped me a ton, I don't block anyone. But if I run across, and it's mostly Virginia Tech fans, and I like a lot of them, so those are the people I run into the most. If you're going to call us little brother or say rent free or something else lame like that, I'm just going to mute you because not because I'm upset, but because you're lame, and it's not an interesting insult. If you insult us in a creative way, I will follow you. I mean, that's the kind of engagement that I enjoy. But I
Right.
probably have 400 to 500 Virginia Tech accounts muted, so they're just yelling into the void whenever they get mad at me.
I'm sure they got pretty loud with the hiring of James Franklin too. I can't say I
It's
know a lot of Virginia Tech fans nor have engaged with them on social media, so I can only imagine everything that they were saying after that hire.
Yeah, so it's been tough, but I will say, watching them go back and forth with Penn State fans are worse, I think. I mean, because they fired James Franklin and they still won't stop talking about him to Virginia Tech fans. And
Mm,
so that's mostly what I've seen. Like, because look, he's killing it recruiting, he's doing really well for them. But it's mostly been like, I can't believe I'm about to admit this, but I've been supporting some Virginia Tech fans fighting with Penn State fans for being losers because they're
yeah,
still talking about like you have your own coach, just go do your own thing. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Um, Having said that, I hope James Franklin falls on his face and does terrible. So
Of course, yeah. I was hoping you would end it with something like that. I'm like, this is a little too nice, I feel like, for
yeah, no, I only go so far.
yeah, absolutely. But it's fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see what he accomplishes at Virginia Tech. Like you said, so far things are looking optimistic. Is any part of you worried given that like Virginia football is kind of also like on the uprise right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say worried. I mean, last year was such an aberration for us. The first time we've ever won 11 games. So um, I told
Ever. That's
myself,
right. It's like the
yeah,
first time ever you guys
ever.
have won
We'd only
games.
won 10 once before, and that was when I was in undergrad. And so I just told myself, I'm just going to enjoy it and not worry about next year.
Yeah.
That was a lie that I told myself
Funny how
because,
that works, right?
yeah, when I look at the recruiting rankings, I mean, and part of it is it's so hard now to know what any of this means because they're way ahead of us in the high school recruiting rankings. But what that it's not that it doesn't matter, but half those
Right.
kids might not be there in 2 years.
Exactly.
And we brought in some really good transfers, so part of it is I don't know how to analyze. It's almost like too much data now coming from too many different places to know kind of where we stand. So I'm just kind of waiting for the season to start. But he's definitely. I mean, their last coach was incompetent. He's now their defensive coordinator, which is weird. But I mean, have you ever seen that a team fire its coach and
I
the
don't
new
feel like I've
coach
ever
just
seen
brings
that.
them right back? Like,
Yeah, like there is a reason
yeah,
why. Rarely it's like you weren't a good head coach fit, but you'd be a good assistant coach fit. Usually they
right.
just wipe that person out of a
You've
program.
usually done a lot of stuff they're unhappy with, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, so he's
right.
back. Their floor is going to be higher, so they're not going to go 3-9 anymore. I'm hoping that Franklin has a ceiling there, like he did at Penn State,
Yeah.
and that the ceiling is something like 8-4, 9-3. I can't deal with them winning the ACC. Yeah, you might see me lose it on Twitter if they if they win the ACC in year one under Franklin.
That would be rough. I mean,
It,
they might be a little bit insufferable from
yes,
that. That would be rough. I
they
mean,
already are, but it'll be significantly worse.
yeah, right. I have to say, I don't know if I have a ton of experience with Penn State fans. I mean, a little bit after Oregon played them last year, so like the weeks leading up to that, but I've never really engaged in a ton of back and forth. I know there was some that tried talking trash last year, like pointing out. I think you'll remember this. Like there was a Penn State fan who pointed out that like Nike runs sweatshops. And I was very quick to point out that we really don't want to play that game of the bad things this university is known for.
They're clueless when it comes to and listen, there is a large faction who will defend how the school handled the whole thing.
Ah,
So Yeah, I mean
I'm
they're
not complaining. Actually, I don't think I'm complaining of the fact that I don't have a ton of back and forth with
no,
him.
no. Yeah,
That's
they're
not.
a little unhinged. Like I said, for
Yeah.
me to I literally inserted myself into a thread of Penn State and Virginia Tech to say this is how bad y'all are being. Like I am defending Virginia Tech fans because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where they'll post something about James Franklin, Virginia Tech fans will respond, and then Penn State fans will say, "Oh, look how obsessed you are." I'm like, "No, you don't get to do that. You know, you're the one who brought it up." So I'm
Yeah.
not sure why it bothers me. I think I was probably just bored that day.
I mean, that plays a role in it too, right? When we engage with certain things, it's like I have time on my hands.
That's
So, yeah, I'm going to
exactly
tell
it.
you, I need
Yeah.
to tell you why you're wrong.
In between conference calls, who can I go anger on Twitter?
Right,
Right.
exactly. I got a few minutes. Let me see what I can get, what trouble I can get into. Absolutely. Um, So there's an interesting, obviously, we've seen many different forms of college football. And well, first, kind of going back a little bit, I wanted to throw you an impromptu question. So, one that I probably didn't really talk about beforehand, which I should have considering your own podcast. But, like, are there any like message board posts that come to your mind when you think about people just being unhinged or being really emotional, or like that rivalry discourse like really elevating on the message boards to where people are just like becoming keyboard warriors and they're really just typing just to get it all out, and everybody on the message boards just happens to be the audience whether they like it or not?
Yeah, the place we're seeing it right now mostly is Ole Miss and LSU.
Yes.
Like, so I will say the last 2 or 3 years, we always circle one game that we talk about on the podcast where we say this is
Yeah.
the game that we're really looking forward to this year. And a lot of years recently, it's been Ohio State, Michigan for obvious reasons. This year was it week three they play each other. Has there ever been a more anticipated week three game
I
in
know.
college football? And
Yeah.
I don't even know how good either team is going to be. But that, what I love about that is it's everything that is just insane and fun about college football, right? It's a coach leaving and going to another school. It's all the drama surrounding that. It's social media, with Lane Kiffin. He's the villain. I mean, he leans into being the villain, and then, after the interview that he did, now he's been off Twitter and hasn't posted anything since he did the Vanity Fair
Yeah.
interview. And it's just all that, and the fact it's in Oxford, right? I'm pretty
I'm
sure.
pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that it's in Oxford and they're hurt. I mean, by the way that he left, and I don't blame them at all. And just that whole thing. So it's
Yes,
not a
it is in
specific
Oxford. I just
example.
checked.
It is okay.
Yeah.
That's not a specific example, but I think what it does is it just that storyline has everything that is awesome about college football. Because even a great venue like Oxford is supposed to be just a great
Yeah.
place to go see a game. You're
Yeah.
going to have these drunk Cajuns who are all fired up. LSU fans I love, but they are totally unhinged sometimes. I think that game really captures everything that is amazing about college football because that is going to be the talk on game day, on everything else. I mean, that's all anyone's going to be talking about that whole Saturday and the Friday leading up to it, and then after the game on Saturday, evening.
Yeah.
And that's where college football is different. You might have North Carolina and Duke play in basketball, and it's a great game, and it gets talked about, but it's not like a full day where afterwards we're still talking about not only the game but the rivalry between the coaches and this coach did this and he's talking trash on Twitter. You don't see that with these other sports, and that's part of why I love it. I mean, the unhinged nature of it makes it significantly more fun.
It's definitely one of those games I would love to be at because I can only imagine what the atmosphere is going to be. And I know you guys just recently talked about this on your podcast as well. I think MBG said ticket prices were already like insane. But it's definitely going to be a fun environment. And it's funny, I'm one of those people who like rarely remember what I dream about. I have a point to this, I promise. But like, I sleep well, but it's like I have friends who like can recount dreams detail for detail. And I'm like, I haven't been able to do that in years.
I'm
But
one of those people.
recently,
So
yes, you're one of those people. See, I envy it. But recently, I actually had a dream that I was going to that game, and I'm like,
man,
I must be really excited for this game that my team is not involved in at at all if I'm having a dream about it, but I'm also remembering that dream. So it's like you said, it encapsulates everything that like makes college football. And the fact that he left Ole Miss for another team in the same conference is like that's going to be a continuous storyline during his tenure
After
at
killing it
LSU.
at Ole Miss. I mean, they
Yeah,
were going to the playoff. It's not like
exactly.
he
And he
didn't have
definitely
the
leans into
resources
being
or wasn't doing
ex-
well. They were doing great.
right. Yeah. And like he definitely leans into being the villain, like you said. And I think that has like he's become like a character in college football, right? Like he has become somebody where we all can pinpoint different stories of Lane Kiffin at different schools that have like the same denominator of like being a villain and being Lane Kiffin, whether he's being petty or whether he's making questionable decisions. It's like that's kind of like what he does. And so the fact that he's still in the SEC is meaning that like this is going to continuously be a storyline. Obviously this year will be the biggest since it is the first, but it's going to be a a pretty magnificent atmosphere, I feel like.
Oh, it's going to be, and you're right. When it's at LSU next time, it'll be huge all over again. You just
Yeah.
touched on something too that I think is separates college football, which is I want to watch that game more than anything. If LSU and Ole Miss were playing in basketball, if they were playing in baseball, I don't care. I'm not being a jerk, but I'm not going to watch those games, right? Whereas on Saturday, I watch a ton of Oregon games because of you. Like I watch a ton of Alabama games. I don't do that with, and I love basketball. I don't do that with college basketball in the same way. I watch us. I might watch some other ACC games, but I'm not going to seek out these other games. Whereas I can sit there on Saturday if I plan things well and just watch games all day with teams I might not even know a ton of players on it. That doesn't matter. It's the programs that I want to watch or the coaches, that make it interesting to me in a way that other college sports just aren't the same.
Absolutely. I will literally watch any college football game. I don't really care who it is. I don't really care part of what conference they're a part of. I don't care necessarily the division. Like I will watch any college football game, and that's just not the same for me personally with any other sport, and even football at any other level. Like even with NFL, I'm a little pickier. Like I don't really want to watch that Sunday night game. I'm going to do
Hmm.
something else instead, or I might have it on in the background while I'm doing something else.
Right.
But
Not
like college
actively
football,
watching it, but yeah. Like into it,
exactly.
right? Like I don't know who
Yeah,
I'm going to root for in Ole Miss LSU. I won't know until I start watching. But as soon as I start
exactly,
watching, I'll know. And that's how I am with
exactly.
every college game. Whereas if I'm watching it's another way. It's different. If I'm watching a random college basketball game, I'm just watching it. I'm not rooting for either team. But college
Yeah,
football, there's something about it where once I start watching, there's a team I want to win, and I don't even necessarily know who it is.
it's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's totally different than other sports. There's not another sport where I will sit down in the morning and continuously watch until the day is done. That is simply reserved for college football only.
Right, watching 3 hours of pregame before you're even watching the games, right? So,
Right. Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about, the identity and how fans take so many different things personally. I think one thing that is like central to fans, like you've mentioned a few minutes ago, like something we all come together and agree upon. I think college fans in general, like the majority of them, there's a few things we all come together to agree upon. I think expanding to a 24 playoff is one of those things. I've seen a lot of solidarity in the last few weeks about people being really against the playoffs expanding to 24. And also that jump from like 12 to 24 seems
it,
really dramatic and unnecessary
it makes no
because you
sense.
can't
I
go
don't.
back.
Why it's never going to contract, right? And so I don't
Right.
understand why it went to 12 because 8 gives you an easy bracket. You don't have buys. The buys just make it messier. I understand why you might want to have them. So maybe, like even we talked about this last night. The guest we had on our podcast said that he wanted them to go to 6 because he felt like, when it was at 4, because he felt like every year there were about 6 teams that had a chance to win, and that if you go to 6, maybe the top 2 teams get a bye, and
Yeah.
then you've got the semifinals, right? So maybe go from 4 to 6. 4 to 12 made no sense to me. 12 to 24 doesn't make sense. Why go to 16 if you have to expand? Because again, then it's an even bracket on both sides. You don't have these unwieldy bye weeks. But now you're at 24. They're never going to have fewer than 24 now.
Right.
So just, it makes you question, well, is this going to end up being like 64, FBS teams? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It just seems
No.
like we're committing to a lot when we could just like test the waters a little bit more with 12 and then go to 16. So it's like we're jumping really, like we're making a drastic jump. So obviously that there the majority of college football fans will tell you like obviously no fall weddings on Saturdays. So there's like these things central to like how we all come together. And I definitely think hope is one of those, which kind of ties into why people take it so personally, is because a loss might be a jab at the hope that they have for the season that they wanted their team to have. And every offseason kind of renews this optimism, right? In sometimes the most delusional ways. So it's like, oh, we have a first year head coach. We're automatically going to win like 10, 11 games. And they have historically, let's say, never gone above 8. So it's like sometimes that hope can be incredibly delusional, or that optimism could be delusional. But I definitely feel like the off season is kind of like this reset. And we see, especially because we're in the off season right now, it's like really easy to pinpoint that and see it. But we kind of see how hope becomes one of those things that fans all like collectively feel, just like in different ways. Like Washington, they're hoping they win like 9, 10 games. They've talked about that. I'm hoping they win 3. So it's like our hope looks different, but hope is like the common denominator
I didn't
here.
think about that. The hoping for bad outcomes for your rivals. That's because you think of hope as
Exactly.
like this positive emotion, right? Like I want, but
Yeah.
you're right. You're 100% right. Like I want Virginia Tech to lose as badly as I want us to win, almost. Like
Yeah.
those two things coexist.
Absolutely. So it's like hope becomes renewed. So it's like hope and makes us move, it pushes us forward and we move forward, whether we're hoping for someone's downfall or hoping for a national championship. And so fans like emotionally invest in possibility. I think that's like sports fans across the board. We emotionally invest in possibility and hope, because it's like we're taking every amount of data or measurement that we have from previous seasons, especially the most previous season, and applying it to how it can like fit our narrative going into the next season. So it's like, oh, I hope this team sucks. And that's looking really good because these key players transferred and they have less experience at this position and their schedule's really tough. And so it's like we kind of go into this analytics mode. But it's like it becomes central to a fandom. Hope, whether that's good or bad.
It's a microcosm of life, right? Like without hope,
Right.
what do you have? And so, like as a Virginia fan, when you lose to your rival again 18 times in a row, when you're winning 3, 4, 5 games a year, like why would I go in if I were to go into the next year after winning like 4 games and think, oh God, we're going to do this again? Like, why am I doing that to myself? Right? The only way that you can make it make sense is to that hope that things are going to get better, that we're going to have this magical season we had last year where we win a game on a walk-off safety, where we win another game on a goal line stand, where we have all these crazy things happen where we win close games. That's why you root for teams. That is why I've stuck with them for 40 years, right? It's for last year. That's exactly why. And so it's like with life, like you keep plugging away, and you hope sooner or later things are going to get better, or at least your enemies are going to suffer. Like that.
Exactly. Like if I'm going down, they better be going down with me. That's basically what it is.
It's
If
one of those is
I'm
going to bring me one or both is going to bring me joy.
yeah,
So
exactly. Because I need like that to make me feel better. Like, God, we really suck, but could be worse.
right.
Like there could be worse. So yeah, college football like thrives on emotion for many of the reasons we've talked about today. But I think that's like something that really kind of just keeps the overreactions a part of the cultures, because it thrives on emotion so much. And we see it on social media, we see it on message boards, we see it in other people with their podcasts venting about their team, venting about their programs. So it's like this continuous carousel of overreactions and emotions and taking things personally, and having that hope kind of like is like the center of it all. So to kind of like close things out, which I'm going to ask you a few because I think you probably have really good insight being part of the MBG podcast, but which fan base takes things the most personally?
Most personally, so I mean, it's got to be. I would think it has to be an SEC program.
And you can give me like a top three if you don't want to commit to
Yeah,
just
so
one.
I guess there are a couple of different ways to think about this. Like, if you think about take things personally, as in they become the most unhinged, right? I would
Yeah.
say Tennessee and Oklahoma are two
Yeah.
that are up there for me. Where Tennessee in particular, I mean, you talked about hope, right? I mean, I think they every year have a significant amount of hope based on things that are unclear. Um, you know, I mean, and it's not to say they're a successful program, but I feel like their expectations constantly outpace what realistically what's going to happen. And so um, I think they become a little unhinged because of that. Oklahoma fans are just unhinged in a different way. Um, I, it, it's interesting too. I think sometimes really successful programs, when they dip a little bit, um, run into the same issue. Like, Alabama and Georgia, that I wouldn't call it a dip necessarily, but the Big Ten has caught up. And, they can keep talking about the grind of an SEC schedule and all that stuff, but the top of the Big Ten and the top of the SEC aren't different. And frankly, the bottom of those two conferences, they're not too different. I'm going to ask you now, though, to remind me what the question was, because I just talked myself in a pretzel and I
No,
forgot what you asked.
you answered it. Which fan base takes things the most personally?
So
So,
I think what's been interesting to me is Alabama. I don't know if I would say they take it the most personally, but I would say based on the amount of success that they've had, their skin is sometimes thin when they get criticism. And I want to be careful when I say this because I love our friends who are Alabama and Georgia fans. Um, but I think that they are so used to a level of success that, frankly, from what we've seen, is difficult, if not impossible, to keep these days. There are just too many moving pieces, and so we'll see what Indiana does. I mean, that's the question: is whether they're going to be able to stay at the level they were last year. But there
right.
are. It's no longer a situation where you have like two or three teams who could win the Natty. I think there are. It's more like eight or nine now, and so I think that has made some teams that are at the very top take things a little personally, take things a little seriously. And I think part of that is they're worried about their position at the top, and they should be. I mean, it's the things that Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana have done in the last couple of years. I mean, I don't know the last time a non-SEC team won consecutive natties like this, but it's been a while. So,
Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah.
Who do you? Is
I
there a fan
think
base that you think takes things too seriously?
I definitely think Texas and Oklahoma would be up there. I interact
That's
with a lot of USC fans, so I just feel like because I interact with a lot of USC fans, I just have more data on them and they can absolutely take things personally. And if you don't automatically think about like Reggie Bush when you're talking about USC, then you're not talking about the right era of college football. So when that was a long time ago, and I think they've just
right.
a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked that era of USC football too because it was fun, but we're not there.
Yeah.
And
He's been
I
retired for a while.
yeah,
So
right, exactly. And I think it's interesting because yeah, like with what you said with Alabama, it is when you've had such historic success like Alabama has, and then Georgia's obviously been successful as well. I imagine it can be difficult to you know, now that you're not playing at that level and now that, Nick Saban retired, it's like everything just looks a little different.
it
It's like it's
does.
college
It
football, but it
feels
looks
different,
it
right?
feels
I mean, when he was there, it was like, how do we possibly beat them? And now
yeah,
it's no, they're beatable. You have to play well.
right.
They're very good,
Yep.
but the aura that was there is not there anymore. And if it was, Indiana beat it out of them in the
Right.
playoff last year. So,
Yeah.
and I like rooting for Alabama. I think college football is better when they're really good. So I hope they turn it around. But you
Every
know,
time I see like Alabama and Georgia fans complaining, like what immediately comes to my head is like, that's simply not my college football tax bracket. Like, you know how you see like influencer videos where they're like on a yacht and they're like doing things that like rich people do, and you're like, that is simply not my tax bracket. It's the same with college football because it's like, oh, you're comparing national championships. That's simply not the world I live in.
right. How
So I
dare you
can't.
say this national championship team
Right.
was not like one of the five best
Right.
teams of all time? I'm like, you're getting the pick among national championships. Like you're like when we won a natty in basketball, I told myself and I stuck to this. I was like, I'm not going to complain for 5 years. Like it's one natty, but I don't care what happens. I'm not complaining about our basketball program, and I didn't because that should buy you a lot of time,
It
as a
should.
program. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't,
For
especially college.
SEC.
I mean, I was just having this conversation with somebody about how the year, most recently, when Ohio State won the national championship, so at 24, um, how some fans still look at that season as like a because they lost to Michigan. I'm like, you won the
Like
national championship.
what are we doing? Right? Like you
Right.
won a natty. You get to hold that over
Yeah.
everyone's head.
Right.
Michigan is going to yap for beating you as they
Right.
should. I would do the exact same thing. I would
Absolutely.
never shut up if I was a Michigan fan, but at some
Absolutely.
point you have to be able to say, "So what?" Like
Yep.
we won the natty. Let them yap,
Exactly.
right?
Yep. Absolutely. Exactly.
And again, like let me say, if I was a Michigan fan and we beat Ohio State that year, I would literally never shut up about it. So
I mean,
I
that's
get
fair.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. That's fair. It's just like it's so that perspective is so interesting because like you won what so many football teams like are trying to do, and like they're just trying to get one. And like you, this isn't your first national championship, but I think that also speaks to kind of just like how deeply embedded that rivalry is. Like that's a
yeah.
very serious
And
rivalry.
hope, right? I mean, hope is it just depends on what your context is. When you talked about like your tax bracket, like for me, if we, even now that it's expanded to 24, we had a chance to make the playoff last year and blew it. But if we ever make the playoff, like that to me is something I want to live to see, right? And that will be a huge thing to me. And so it depends on like hope is all contextual and kind of what your expectations are. And I do think when you see miserable fans, because there are some out there, a lot of times
Yeah.
it's when your expectations are just not proportional to the reality.
Right.
And like NC State fans in the ACC, they're the Tennessee of the ACC. We've decided because they have a good program every year. They win 7 to 9 games, usually 8 or 9 games every year. They just don't have they're never going to win a national championship. It's going to be hard for them to make the playoff. They don't have the investment in football that they need
Yeah.
to do that, but their fans still expect that to happen. And that disconnect makes them unbearable. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is also another interesting component of college football. It's like when the expectations just simply aren't reasonable. Like I understand being a little bit delusional. I understand being a little unhinged, but when
part of
you're
being a
expect
fan, right? Being a little bit
yeah,
delusional.
absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, kind of like what you said, there's some fans that set themselves up for disappointment because they live like up here and their football program is just not invested enough to allow fans to live up there comfortably.
Yeah, like if I went into every season thinking if we don't make the college football playoff, I'm going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm going to be miserable a lot. So,
Right. Like why do that to yourself?
right,
Why
exactly.
why
Give yourself
why?
achievable goals. It's like when you do a to-do list every day, right? Write down some
Yes.
stuff that you can actually get done so you knock it off and you feel better about yourself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's all about managing expectations and being
Right?
a little realistic. We can be delusional, but let's just be a
Yeah,
little realistic for our overall
exactly.
well-being. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Who's. This has been super fun and super interesting. I really appreciate your insight. Can you tell people where they can find you and the podcast?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. I think Instagram is the same at Who's Football, And the podcast, the MBG podcast, is at the MBG podcast. We record every week, usually release on Friday morning. It's a lot of fun. We just did our 153rd episode yesterday. So
That's
tune in and
exciting.
check it out. Yeah, man, it's fun. We had you on a couple years ago, and hopefully we'll have you on again.
That was so much fun. Definitely one of my favorite college football podcasts, probably my favorite college football podcast. So,
Thank you.
yes, be sure to check it out. And thank you again so much, Hughes. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.